Hey guys, so today is Friday, January 11th. It's Macy's 3rd birthday, and I am going to meet with my fertility doctor to start trying for baby number 2. Okay guys, so I just got done with my doctor's appointment, but basically what's gonna happen is on Tuesday, so on, let's see what the date is, on January 15th, I will be doing another HSG, which I did before getting pregnant with Macy, and it was horrible, so we'll see how that goes. But I think they like to do that just to make sure that everything looks okay, that your tubes are clear, you don't have any blockages or anything like that. And then after that, I basically have to wait until the middle of February to see if I get a cycle or a period by myself. If not, then I'm going to contact them. They're going to have me start Provera, and then after I get a cycle from that, or not really a cycle, but after I bleed from that, then they will start doing some of the tests that they need to get done. They will put me back on birth control to get me to bleed again. I guess it's easier to do than having to do Provera again, and that's when we'll start the cycle. So they're thinking I won't start an actual Femera cycle until the middle of March probably. So it's gonna be a wait. I was really hoping that it wouldn't be that much of a process, but of course with fertility stuff it is, so I just have to be patient. In terms of medication, I think we're gonna do the same thing. Back when I got pregnant with Macy, they did 2 IUIs. Now they only do 1 because I guess there's been research that shows that it doesn't make a difference if you do 1 or 2. And let's see, they also said that we would do progesterone vaginally, and that's something that I did not do before. I was on metformin when I got pregnant with Macy, and that's something they don't do either, because they said, again, research shows that it doesn't really make a difference. So those are the main things that I kind of took away from the appointment. I am technically on day 9 of my cycle, and they did an ultrasound to check and see what's kind of going on, and same thing. I have polycystic ovaries. None of my eggs were big. They're all very tiny, so I really do not think that I will have a cycle on my own. So it's just a waiting game for now. But today is Tuesday, January 15th, and I just got my HSG done, and I wanted to share a little bit about it before I headed back home. So I've done this before, and the last time I got it done, it was very painful. I remember that. So I went into it very nervous, and so I got it done. My doctor did mention that usually after having a baby, everything is kind of relaxed, your muscles are relaxed, so it's not as bad. And I have to say, I think it was just as bad. It's just really uncomfortable. You know, they're putting a balloon up there, there's dye, there's a lot going on. I don't know all the technical terms, but basically I was like cramping the entire time that they were pushing the fluid in. Afterwards, I felt extremely dizzy, so I laid down for probably like 10 minutes just because I felt like I was gonna pass out. And yeah, so now I'm okay. It's done, it's over with. I keep trying to remind myself that is not as bad as pushing out a baby, so maybe it's like a test. You have to get through it so you can have a baby, I don't know. But anyway, the HSG is done. So the next steps, Jason has to go get a semen analysis. They just want to make sure that everything looks okay for him. I need to get some blood work just to make sure that I am good with some of the vaccinations and stuff. So after that, then we can go and do our nurse consult and just get a game plan, because we have a rough plan, but the nurse's consult is like one of the things you have to do before you can start the cycle. You sign all kinds of paperwork, you know, accepting risks and all that kind of fun stuff. So anyway, the HSG is done. So what has happened so far, I don't know when the last time I updated you guys, but my doctor wanted me to see if I would get a cycle on my own. I think a lot of what I'm going through, all the little jumps and hoops and everything, is because of insurance. But basically, they wanted to see after my getting off birth control if I would start a cycle by myself. So I had to wait until the middle of February to go in. and get my blood drawn and all of that. I did not have a cycle, surprise, surprise. So anyway, after that, they put me on Provera to start like a new cycle, not a real cycle, a fake cycle basically. And so today is day 3 for me. So I went in, got blood work done, did an ultrasound, and I think with the blood work, they're checking like normal levels, but also checking my reserve of eggs. So that should be interesting. Hopefully everything looks okay. I didn't have an issue last time when I had Macy, and I wouldn't think a couple years would matter a ton, but they wanted to check it. So going forward, I think what we're gonna be doing is, today they'll probably tell me to start birth control, and I'll take a couple weeks worth of birth control. That's really just so that they can get like a fresh cycle again. Like I'll take it, go off of it, I'll bleed, and then we'll start the medication. We'll start Provera. So I haven't done an update in a long time. And honestly, it's been because it hasn't been going so well. Again, so today is April 15th, tax day. And today is the day that I get my first IUI for my first cycle with Provera. So really quickly before I go in, I just want to talk about how it's been going. And I feel like I'm already getting emotional thinking about it, not because I'm like thinking about the fact that it might work or that it might not work, but just like how much of a journey it's already been. You know, we had our first appointment in January. It's the middle of April, and we're finally doing our first IUI. It's crazy that that's a thing, you know, like that it takes over 4.5 months just to get to the point where like there's a possibility that you might be pregnant, you know. I know so many people go through so much more than what I'm going through, but it's just crazy to think about the fact that it takes so long and that it's so hard for some people. And I'm sorry for all of you guys who may be also going through this. So with Macy cycles in the past, you know, I did 3 IUI cycles with her using letrozole Provera, and with those cycles, during this whole process, I've gone back and looked at my, you know, my flow sheet for all of those cycles just to kind of compare it. And honestly, this cycle that I'm in right now is nothing like the previous cycles. So with Macy cycles, what basically happened is I would take the medication for 5 days, and then within a week or so after finishing the medication, I would do my IUI. This cycle, it took 2 weeks for my body to respond to the medication, and I was not expecting that. I thought that because my previous 3 cycles when we were trying to get pregnant with Macy, I thought because those were like pretty consistent that this would be exactly the same situation, that within a week we'd be doing the IUI, and it didn't work out that way. For some reason, my body didn't respond to it as well. And I know the first round is always a little bit of an adjustment because your body doesn't know what to do with the medication. I haven't ovulated since I got pregnant with Macy. So like it's been almost 5 years since I've ovulated. My body has ovulated. Like that's crazy to think about. So it took longer, and actually what ended up happening was they wanted me, and I don't know if I talked about this, so unlike Macy's cycles, they didn't want me to come in for monitoring right away. They wanted me to do ovulation tests. So I did ovulation tests for about 5 days, no changes. At that point they were like, you know what, come in, we just want to make sure that like we're not going to miss it. So I go in, I have a 13 millimeter follicle on my right ovary, which is weird to me because my left was experiencing a lot of discomfort. I didn't really feel much on my right. It was a lot on my left. So I'm like, that's kind of weird, but okay. So I go back in 2 days later, and that right follicle only grew by 0.3 millimeters. So at that point, it was 13.3 millimeters. Super discouraging because normally in my previous cycles, within 2 days, it would grow to be like what it should be. So weird. So then I go back in, I think they had me come back like 3 days later. That follicle that was on my right, completely gone. Not there at all. But now there's a 13 on my left, which again makes sense because I was experiencing discomfort there. But
still nowhere closer to being done. It's, you know, like, and how does that happen? How do you have one that's growing, then it completely disappears, now you have one on the other side? The technician, and again, this is, I'm not giving medical advice at all, I'm just telling you my experience, telling you what I've heard. The technician said that sometimes with PCOS, which is what I have, the follicles could grow too much and they can suppress other eggs from growing or continuing to grow. So she thinks that the other eggs on my right side were just growing too much. So they suppressed that 13 from continuing to grow. And so since that wasn't continuing to grow, another follicle developed. Again, I don't know if that's technically right, but that's what she said. So I go back in 2 days later and I have an egg that is at, or a follicle that's at 18. So 2 days later, we did the trigger shot. Jason went in today to give a sample, and now I'm doing the IUI. So it's been a process. It's been really hard, just because there's so many appointments and because it's not working the way that it has in the past. I don't know why I ever expect things to work the same way, because I've realized that you should go into it with like no expectations of it working or whatever, so you're not just confused and upset when it doesn't work. One thing that I wanted to quickly mention before I go in is that the same ultrasound specialist mentioned to me that it's not uncommon for you to take letrozole and for it to take a while for your body to respond. So she said there's actually one person who had to take letrozole 4 separate times within the same exact cycle to finally get a follicle that was big enough to do the trigger. So I think that's mind-blowing, and I can't even imagine how many appointments that poor girl had to go through. But I am just so thankful that my body finally responded to it, and that we're at this point in the cycle. And it's crazy to me that in 2 short weeks, like, we'll know if it worked or not, or we'll be moving on to the next cycle. We're still at the same point. I am honestly, like, I think going through all of this has made me realize that I am not willing to do more. I have bruises like all over my arms from them taking blood, because I've gone to so many doctor's appointments. And again, I'm not complaining, because I know so many people have to go through more than what I'm going through. But I think it's important to have limits of what you're willing to go through. We have Macy, and I've always said from the beginning that, like, if we just get to have one, that's it. Like, God, give me one, and I will never complain again. So I am in no way complaining. I think it would be great to have another one, but I also have my limits of what I'm willing to go through. And we did the trigger on Saturday night, and it just reminded me that I would never be able to do IVF. I'm not good with needles. I'm not good with getting my blood drawn. I felt like I was gonna pass out by just like mixing the vials. So I'm glad that it ended up working out, because I think if it didn't, and if I had to do like injections or move on to IVF, I don't think that we would have another baby. I just personally could not give myself shots, and I couldn't go through all of that. So I give a ton of credit to people who have to go through IVF, because that is no joke. Those shots and stuff are no joke. So anyway, I'm gonna go in now. And I don't know exactly what I'm gonna do yet. I know in 2 weeks we'll know, like in less than 2 weeks, because I'll know at 7:25 on the 29th. I don't know if I'm gonna test. I don't know any of it. All I know is going forward, I have no more appointments, thank goodness, until the 29th, when I'll find out if I'm pregnant or not. And until then, I have to start taking progesterone vaginally for 3 times per day. So I'm a little nervous about that. I've heard that it's messy and that it's not fun, but in 2 weeks we'll know. So I'm just thankful for that. Hey guys, so I have not done an update since my IUI, and I'm honestly not even sure what I'm gonna do with this video. I don't know if I'm gonna post it all together or separate or whatever, but today is the 27th? Yes, today is April 27th. So, little backstory before I get into what I'm gonna show you guys. So, today's the 27th. We did our IUI 12 days ago. So I ovulated 12 days ago. And again, we're dealing with infertility. I have PCOS, so I don't ovulate on my own. And I was thinking about it the other day. I actually have not ovulated since the last time that I got pregnant, which was with Macy. So it's definitely something different for my body. I feel like I kind of feel it a little bit more. Like I feel the symptoms. I don't know. Maybe a lot of people do. I just feel like I feel them pretty strongly. So with Macy, and with the 3 cycles that it took to have Macy, I tested out the trigger because part of the cycle is you have to take a trigger shot to get your follicle to release. And with that, there's HCG in it. So you have to, if you plan on testing, you really should test out the trigger so that when you get a positive, you know it's actually a positive and not the trigger. That's hard because that means it's hard taking a test and seeing a positive and it not being a real positive. It's also hard taking a test every single day and then finally getting a negative and waiting to see when you're finally gonna get a positive. So it is like the whole process, and you guys probably know if you have gone through the same thing, is just heartbreaking. It's really heartbreaking. But I am impatient. I am probably the most impatient person you've ever met. I can't not test. I have to test. I have to see as soon as I possibly can. And with Macy, I got my first positive pregnancy test at 9 DPO, which is early. And then I knew for sure that I was pregnant by 11 DPO, because what I always do is I just keep testing just to see if it gets darker. If it gets darker, that's a good sign. And by 11 DPO, I had a positive digital, which is kind of like the real deal in my opinion. I feel like once you see it on the digital and it says pregnant, like it's for sure. So I did the same thing this cycle, which is our first cycle, our first IUI since trying for baby 2. That's kind of crazy to think about. And I tested out the trigger starting at 5 DPO, and I have a bunch of tests here. So this is what it looked like at 5 DPO. So it was obviously very much still in my system. I kept testing out, and around 8 DPO, I'm like, it has to be coming out of my system soon, because it was definitely out of my system by the time I found out I was pregnant with Macy. Well, it was really not out of my system. It was still very much a line there. And same with 9 DPO. It's getting kind of disgusting, but there's definitely still a line. So I'm like, well, that's when I found out with Macy. That's kind of weird. One of the days in between there, I actually got a darker line. So I'm like Googling, is there a possibility that you can get a positive pregnancy test that's real without the trigger being out of your system? And of course, there were people who did it, but I was the exception to that, like, or the rule, because as it got, you know, as the days went on, I finally got a negative. So obviously I was not really pregnant at that time. So I think 10 DPO, and it's gonna be hard to see because it's very yellow. At 10 DPO, I officially had a negative. And at the time, I felt like I still saw a little bit of a line, but I didn't know. So then that night, I have a bunch of the really cheap Dollar Tree tests, and I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna take a test just because I have them. And I saw a very faint line there. And honestly, you guys probably won't even be able to see it. Maybe you can. I feel like you can kind of see it there. And of course, I'm like, well, maybe it's, woo, Sarah, where are you? Now it's having a hard time focusing on my face. So of course, I've taken tests before. I've never taken these before, but I did some research on them. They didn't seem to have bad evap lines or anything like that. So then, you know, I'm like, okay, maybe it's something, maybe not. And I was saving my first response for the mornings, because I know your first morning urine is always supposed to be like the best for testing. So then on 11 DPO, this happened. And again, it wants to focus on my face. Do you guys see that? That is totally a line. And like I said, the line was completely gone before that. So this is legit. And then today at 12 DPO, I took another test in the morning. And again, I took one 11 DPO at night. and there was definitely a line there. So I have to say, like, I'm gonna touch on this in a second about the tests and stuff. It's very light, but it's there. And of course it's dry now, so it might be a little bit harder to find. At 12 DPO today, I took another first response in the morning, and there's no denying that. Like, can you see it? That's definitely a line. It's definitely a line. So I decided, so I've been taking the first response and now also the Dollar Tree one. So this is what the Dollar Tree one looks like. So there's definitely a line there. It's very light compared to the first response, but there's definitely a line there. And I took a digital, and guys, I'm pregnant. I'm pregnant. It's hard to really like put that into like real terms and like know that like in 9 months I'm gonna have a baby. It's scary to think about. Like, obviously that's what happens when you do infertility, but like I in no way thought that it would work the first time. I just assumed we would be trying like we did for Macy for a while, and I'm just kind of shocked. When I got a couple things. When I got the test where it like got darker, got lighter, that was hard on me. And that's probably one of the reasons why people tell you not to test during infertility stuff, is just because you get too invested in it, and it's really hard not to see outcomes that you want to see. A lot of people say they have line eyes, just stuff like that. So I got really discouraged around that time, even though this entire cycle, even when it took longer for me to like develop a follicle, I just had this really strong feeling that it was going to work. And that probably doesn't make sense because I just said that like I didn't expect it, but like as I was in the first cycle and going through it, I'm like, this is gonna work. I know it. I know this is gonna work. I just have a feeling. I have a strong feeling it's gonna work. And I also have a really strong feeling that it's gonna be a boy. And it's gonna be fun to watch this later on if it's not, because I could totally be wrong. But I just have a strong feeling that it's going to be a boy. And I don't know why. I don't know why, but again, I had two strong feelings that it was gonna work and that we were gonna have a boy, so we'll see. But I got really discouraged around that time, and I'm like, you know what, I'm done with this. Like, many times during the cycle, I was like, I don't know if I wanna keep doing this. Like, if this one doesn't work, I don't know if I'm gonna do another cycle. So I think it was meant to be, because if it didn't work, I don't know if I would have continued. We did say 4 cycles, and maybe I would change my mind once I saw the negative and I knew for sure it wasn't gonna work, but I had this feeling that like maybe it happened, because if it wouldn't have happened, maybe I would have been like, maybe this happened for a reason. Maybe we didn't get pregnant for a reason, you know, and I don't know. So at that same time, I bought a crap ton of online tests, the cheapy ones like this, because I was like spending so much money on these pregnancy tests, and I'm like, the Dollar Tree ones, I don't even know if they work. I was looking at the sensitivity of all of the tests, and this one was actually supposed to be 20 whatever, like I think the first response ones are 25. If you have like your HCG is at 25, it'll read it. I think the digital and the Dollar Tree ones are 50. So this one seemed to be the most sensitive, although I took it today and there's a faint line, but it's definitely not as dark as the first response. So I don't know if that's necessarily true, but I bought 75 of them because this week or this month is actually Infertility Awareness Month, which is kind of crazy. And I got a pretty good discount on them, but now I'm pregnant and I don't need them, and I won't need them until probably after they expire if we want to have another baby. So it's kind of weird. But one thing that I wanted to tell you guys, and I'll show you guys all the tests like lined up because it's like my entire sink right now, is I have noticed that the Dollar Tree ones are actually just as sensitive as the first response. It's hard for me to like say this for sure, but if we were going to have a third baby, I feel like the Dollar Tree ones would be a better idea, just because they're so much cheaper. And obviously with my results, like I found out first on the Dollar Tree, not because the first response didn't pick it up, but just because I didn't try the first response. So I have a really great appreciation for the Dollar Tree test, and I'm just kind of shocked by how well they work. So again, I'm gonna show you guys all of these tests because I just want to like kind of share the journey with you guys. It's gonna be a little confusing. Maybe I should put them in the order of when I took them, just so you guys get a good idea. So this was 10, that was 11, 11, 12. So I took a bunch of these today just because I wanted to kind of get a good idea of what is going on. And I'll probably still test. I think I have 2 more first response. I have 4 of the Walmart ones, and I have 74 of the online cheapies. And honestly, I would love to see a progression because I didn't test past when I found out with Macy. But I'll obviously not take all of the cheapy ones because that would be insane. So let me flip you guys around and show you guys these tests. Okay, so I'm really hoping this picks it all up, but like I said, this was the first day that I started testing. This was 5 days past ovulation. I did do my trigger shot 2 days before my, before I ovulated. So just to keep that kind of into perspective. And I just marked the date, what DPO it was, and then the little plus with the little circle around it just means that it was positive. So that was the first day. Then you can see it got a little bit lighter that day, a little bit lighter on 7 DPO, which is actually, I was kind of shocked that it was still in my system. One of these days it ended up getting darker. I think this was PM, it got darker, which was kind of weird to me because I did not expect it to get darker. But I think that was just kind of a fluke. Maybe I was a little bit more dehydrated than I was in the morning. I'm not really sure, but it was still positive from the trigger at 8 DPO. 9 TPO, or DPO, there's still a line. And you can see again, I tested again, still there. 10, it's really, really yellow, but there was no line that day. And this is what I took 10 DPO at night. Again, Dollar Tree test, and you can see there's definitely a line there. It wasn't as noticeable as it is now because obviously it's dried, but there was a line 10 DPO, which is when I started getting excited because I'm like, I've never seen a line on these tests before. And I actually did take one of these earlier when I was testing out the trigger, and at one point it was completely negative. So I knew that if something showed up, it was not the trigger on this test. 11 DPO is when I like pretty much confirmed it because obviously it's there. I took that one same day. I just wanted to see if it would show up, and you can tell like that's obviously way more of a line than this is, but it's still there. And then I took that at night just to see if it seemed to get darker. Obviously 12 DPO, totally there. Again, that's the same day, so it's obviously positive there. The internet cheapie, surprisingly, this was like my second morning urine, and there's a line there, but it's definitely not like as dark as I would have thought it would be, especially because these are supposed to be more sensitive. So that's definitely not the case. And then that's my pregnant digital. I am like so excited, guys, so excited, especially excited that I don't have to do it again. Like I don't have to do all the fertility stuff all over again. So those are all of my tests. Excuse my dirty sink. Those are all the tests I've taken except for a couple of these that I threw away because I knew that they were negative. But I am pregnant. I don't know exactly when this will go up. I hope to share this with you guys at some point when we feel comfortable sharing, but that is kind of an update on what's going on. Like I said, I do have some more tests. I have 2 more of the first response. That's an ovulation test from when I was testing. And then this package here is full of internet cheapies. So I have lots and lots and lots of tests left to go. But I do find out, so today's Saturday, I will find out on Monday from from my doctor, and then once the blood work comes back, it'll come back that same day. Then I will go in 2 days later just to make sure everything is rising. And yeah, so I'll keep you guys updated on what's going on. But guys, I am pregnant. To do
a pink.
Pink, are we about to find out if we're having a baby brother or a baby sister?
A baby sister.
You think it's gonna be a girl?
Yeah, girl.
You think it's gonna be a girl? All right, we're gonna find out because Daddy's gonna hit the golf ball and it's gonna explode. If it's blue, what does that mean?
The baby girl.
No, if it's blue, what does it mean?
Baby girl.
No, baby boy is blue, baby girl is pink.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Can we find out?
We're gonna find out. Daddy's gonna hit that right now.
Right now?
Yeah? Are you excited?
Yeah.
What do you want? Do you want a baby sister or a baby brother?
Baby brother.
A baby brother?
Uh-huh.
Okay, let's find out.
Okay. How about we find out?
We are.
Can you ask me if you're gonna have a brother or sister?
A brother or sister?
I think a brother.
A brother.
A brother, that's what I think.
What do you want, me?
What
do
do
you want a brother or sister?
Brother.
You want a brother?
All right.
We'll
Should we try
see.
it? Hey, say 1, 2, 3.
1,